What's on, where, and when. It's the Talk of Nelson. NBS Talk Nelson.
At NBS, we believe in banking for life. For over 160 years, we've been a trusted banking provider for generations of locals like you. We know our clients personally and build long-term relationships with them, offering flexibility by giving our staff freedom to make quick decisions to put them first. Experience banking for life with NBS.
The Mako Rugby Roundup.
Welcome to the Mako Rugby Roundup. I'm Chris Butler, and welcome back to Les Edwards. Nice to see you here, mate.
Yes, thank you. Great day. I'm looking forward to the weekend very much. Great to have Louie here.
Yeah, indeed. We're thrilled to bring you all things rugby on the top of the South. Before we do dive in, a big shout out to our venue sponsor, the Turf Hotel, Main Road, Stoke. Don't forget to check out their Facebook page for everything that's on this weekend. And normally got the rugby live across the weekend, so you can come down and watch it on the big screen. In this episode, we're going to be covering international rugby, but of course, it's been a massive week for the Tasman Mako and still more to come. So it's our great pleasure to welcome to the show Mako 196. It's halfback Louie Chapman. Welcome, mate. Great to have you here.
Yeah, cheers for having me. Awesome.
Mate, look, what a huge week it's been, Abe. Started off with, I guess, what would you call the young guns going down to Otago? That's a good name for them, isn't it? Going down to Otago. Then, of course, a big challenge against Auckland during the week where you got the goods. And then Sunday, another tough challenge. And unfortunately, going down against Taranaki. And, we had the Ranfurly Shield for a couple of weeks. It's not the shortest hold in history. But it was just probably a bit of bad timing, wasn't it? Because, the main challenges came within that storm week. You did see off Wellington, tough challenge, saw off Auckland, but Taranaki just maybe a step too far. Can you tell us, first of all, about the fact that the team held the Ranfurly Shield and what that was like amongst the community, but also, how they're feeling at the moment?
Yeah, it was pretty special. Obviously, it became the first Tasman team to win the Ranfurly Shield, and to be able to hold it for 29 days was very special for the group, and it certainly meant a lot. But I don't think it really quite sunk in until we came back and brought it around the community. So, that was so awesome to win that. And obviously, the boys were pretty bloody gutted after losing it. So, certainly bit gutted after losing that, but I guess we've got to move on pretty quickly because we've got a quarterfinal coming up.
I know. There's no time to rest, is there, really? So tell us about the community feedback for you guys. So, being able to take it around the district, what was that like for you?
Yeah, no, it was really awesome, especially being able to take it out to Motueka where play the club rugby. So the Kahurangi boys took it out there, and feedback from the community was really awesome. Some great showings out at Nelson, Blenheim, and also out there in Mott. So, it was so special for us boys to be able to do that.
Yeah. Tell us about the game against Taranaki. What was the feeling going into that game, and then during the game, do you know what was talked about?
So obviously a big old week and a tough week, but the boys were obviously as up for it as we could be and gave it our best shot, but just sort of things didn't quite roll the way for the boys out there on the field. And I know they sort of talked about just trying to execute using the wind in the second half, get down the right area of the field, and then getting back to the old Tasman way that we've been doing so well. And unfortunately, we just couldn't quite execute enough, and probably leaked a few too many points. So it's just one of those things here.
Yeah, it was just the start, really, wasn't it? It's like the rub of the green just was not going your way. Taranaki started strong and they got an early try. But after that, also, there was a lot of penalties and also the bounce of the balls, some drop balls and just some basic mistakes here and there. And at halftime, there was a bit of catch-up to do. So sometimes, teams just get a little bit too far ahead. But at one point, you're only one converted try away from clinching the match. So it was a good second half, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I guess against a really good Taranaki side, you can't give away penalties and you can't make silly errors. But to be in it, 6 down, with 10 to go in a performance that probably the boys felt like we didn't put our best one out there, was, it's still promising to show that, as we have done the season, sometimes win ugly or perform well when it's not quite working, which I think is, can be crucial in big games as well, just winning moments. But unfortunately against Taranaki, we didn't win enough of them.
Yeah, I really thought that Taranaki, you have to give them credit. The old adage that rugby's about pace, power and possession. And in that first half, they certainly looked big, strong, powerful, and they played with the ball that they were allowed to play with very, very well. And that lead, what was it, 23-8 at half time, that was quite significant. But as you said, Louie, I thought the second half was much better. Whatever was said in the sheds, clearly we clawed back, and I was very optimistic when I looked at the clock at the 70-minute mark, and we were within 6 points. Another converted try, and the Shield could have stayed home, but not to be. An error and a quick reply try by them, and the Shield disappeared. But I do hope that the boys are really, and the coaches are really proud, because that 29 days that the Shield was in our region was very, very special, Louis.
Yeah, and I don't think, as you said there, it really hit home how special it was until we sort of talked with the community or got that Shield out to the community and saw how special it was to the people. And I think that was the really cool thing about it.
Yeah. So look, credit to Taranaki. The thing now is how this team prepares for the quarterfinal on Sunday against Canterbury. Finishing third spot, playing Canterbury in sixth spot.
Yeah.
So an interesting matchup against Big Brother. We've played them a few times, Louis. You have, and you know what you're expecting.
Yeah, look, Canterbury are a pretty well balanced side. They kick well. They can pounce on your errors. So I think, we've just got to step up our game from what we did in round two. They're going to be a whole different beast, and really just focus on getting back to playing our good footy that we have been during the season.
I mean, that was my thought process, is that you've gone through the season undefeated so far, which is a pretty amazing feat, considering when you look at some of the results of some teams, that earlier on the season weren't doing so well. They're now starting to get some wins on the board. I mean, you've got a scenario where Counties Manukau absolutely fired, and and there's been some big scores either end. And you guys, as you pointed out, had scraped through a couple of wins that potentially in other seasons, you might have copped a loss, but still been able to make the finals. Canterbury is, as they do, they've been doing it hard, but now that they're starting to come back at the peak end of the season. So it's going to be no easy feat. And I was saying to someone when I was watching the game, okay, if we do lose this is probably the match to lose, because if you want a little bit of a reset before you go into finals, this is the match. The only problem is it was the Ranfurly Shield, and so, but it does now give you an opportunity to do a bit of reflection. A loss, doesn't it, going into the finals?
Yeah, certainly. I think a loss can light a little bit of a fire inside you, and I guess when you talk about reflection, sometimes reflecting's good, but also you don't want to dwell on it too much. So for us, it was sort of about kind of flushing that performance and moving forward. So really focusing on what Canterbury's going to bring and trying to beat them there.
Yeah, that's right.
So Monday would have been fun day, would it, or Tuesday when when you come back and you have your bonding session to start the week, light the fire.
Yeah. I don't know about fun, but it was all about just preparing ourselves for the week and I guess resetting and refreshing as well, refreshing the mind, body, to get ourselves up for it. Was going to be an awesome week.
All right. So if it wasn't fun, was review fairly pointed, or how did you look at that match much, or did you just move on to preparing for Canterbury?
I think individually, the boys looked through that a lot, and there was a few reviews where some clear things got pointed out. But yeah, not necessarily. We didn't unearth it all and turn over stones and try and work out some big questions or anything like that. It was more about just individually going through that and working out how you can be better.
Right.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll come back and touch on the Canterbury game a bit later in the podcast, but let's turn our attention to All Black Rugby, and the Northern Tour is underway. And it'd be quite interesting for you, Louie, with some of the selections. So a 36-man squad named for the Northern Tour. And the good news is that from the Mako point of view, Lomax, Blackadder, Havili, Jordan, all very well-known names, and also Christian Hotham in the All Blacks 15, and 3 halfbacks, which is Perenara, Ratama, and Roigard. So it'd be interesting to hear from you, Louie, as I guess you call a bit of an understudy to a couple of these halfbacks. You've played against them, you've played underneath them, you've played with them. So first of all, tell us about the fact that they've gone with TJ and then they've brought in Roigard. So, what are your thoughts on that? And interesting that they've picked both Christie and Hotham to go on the 15.
Yeah, look, it is interesting. I don't know how qualified I am to talk about it, but I definitely think Finlay and Noah are pretty unlucky, and that might be biased, but that's my point of view. Especially with maybe TJ heading offshore at the end of the year, obviously brings a bit of experience. Roigard, you can't really dispute the quality that he is as a player as well. He's been in the All Blacks before and had some awesome games, and he looked pretty good when he returned for counties as well. So. They're 5 pretty awesome halfbacks, and it probably could have gone either way for the top 3 spots, really.
Because one of the arguments has been, why have we picked Kane and Perenara when they're off next year? And as John Kerwin pointed out, why couldn't have you had Christie in there? If you're looking for experience, have Christie in there. He's played quite a few tests. So that would have been Christie, Ratama, and Roigard, probably stretching it a bit too much for Hotham. Then the other thought I had was the fact that I wonder how much rugby that Hotham and Christie would have actually got if they were in the, probably Christie from an experience point of view, but Hotham in the actual All Black squad, whereas they're actually going to get to play rugby. And maybe that's what they're trying to do here, is give these guys a run.
Yeah, I think Ratama and Roigard deserve their places.
Yeah.
I really do. Roigard showed all sorts of promise before his injury. And then his performance for Counties Manukau last weekend was just second, and it showed he's well and truly over that. So, that's deserved. And then, as much as I've talked about my desire for Razor to leave Kane and TJ at home with a view to building for 2027, clearly he's got his own attitude about that. He's come out publicly and said they're great leaders around the squad, and he wants to continue that with them mentoring some players. So, as soon as they do decide to do that and they pick Perenara, well, unfortunately, no, I think was the player to drop back. And then I'm delighted that Finlay Christie has had this season for us recognised with his inclusion in the All Blacks 15. So, Christie and Hotham, 2 very, very promising, Noah promising, Finlay experienced and very accomplished halfbacks.
Yeah.
So, look, the future's bright for 2025, isn't it?
Yeah, and it only takes one injury and one of those get to step up, don't they? And Razor definitely talked about having that experience in the squad. So for you guys on Sunday, you had Havili and Blackadder come back into the squad. So I guess a couple of things come to mind when you've got players coming back in, say, on one-off games. Is it hard for them to fit back into the format? And then the other side, the other question is, when you've got experience like that, what do they bring to the squad?
Yeah, is it hard for them to slot back in? I don't think so. They're both absolutely quality players, and sort of what they bring is they bring an edge in terms of their mindset, high standards. They're awesome to have around the group, and I don't think anyone would dispute the way that they slotted in on the weekend, and I think they're going to be awesome in this quarterfinal coming up. So it's awesome to have them involved, that they bring a whole nother level to training and in the games as well. So, yeah.
So maybe that answers your question, Les, about Kane and TJ. Maybe having those experienced players, even if it's not necessarily on the paddock, but around the squad, takes you up to another level.
Yeah, I won't be convinced that they should be there. Sorry. South Africa, we've talked about this. South Africa are an amazing 36-man squad, all primed and ready to keep building for 2027. We know that Perenara and Kane won't be here next year. So,
Yeah.
gosh, bite the bullet and give other players opportunity to the point where Davey and Ethan come back into the Mako. Yeah, they know the setup. They know the way the Mako play. If anything, maybe a little bit of overplaying that hand during the course of the first half, but they certainly showed that they're classy players, and we'll welcome them back this weekend too, won't we, Louie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other surprise? Well, there wasn't really any surprises, but any other thoughts about the forward pack and the back line for the All Blacks selection?
Absolutely no surprises in the
No.
36 to go to the Northern Tour. As for the All Blacks 15, 10 test players and then a bunch of, younger players who are going to get their opportunity to be second stringers, if you like, and with an eye to the future. So interesting. Fabian Holland
Yes, yeah.
became eligible last week, and then he's in the side. So, that quest for big second rowers is ongoing when it comes to All Black rugby. And my word, what a difference a massive second rower like Josh Lord, was able to make for Taranaki. I mean, he was awesome for them, wasn't he? And he had a big second row partner in Jesse Parata. So yeah, their second row looked good, and New Zealand rugby needs big second rows. So Fabian Holland, they'll keep their eye on him closely, I think.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in the WXV one, the Black Ferns, they said it was a record loss. It was, although, a bit of a comeback, it looks like in the second half from the Ferns, going down to England 49-31. I didn't actually get to see the match, but didn't really want to see it after the scoreline. Bit of work to do there, isn't there?
Yeah, doing it tough. Alan Bunting's got a squad that he's trying to build together. The records part of that scoreline was 9 tries conceded, which is quite remarkable for the Black Ferns. So look, they'll be doing what the Mako are doing this week, not dwelling on it too much, looking at their plan for the weekend. They've got France, and that'll be played on Sunday morning at 11:45 a.m. So a good opportunity for the fans to have a look at the improvement.
Did you happen to see any of the highlights, Louie? Or?
No, I probably can't comment too much on that, to be fair. But no, I thought they looked good in the second half. So yeah.
Yeah, we're equal opportunity podcasters, so we do like to give the ladies a message.
Yeah, and it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, it's it's real good rugby.
Yeah.
I love watching the women's game because they throw it around and it's fast paced, and there's some great rugby that's being played. Sometimes the men's are all too big, and it's like hitting a brick wall all the time. Whereas it's not. They seem to be able to create space in the women's game, and it's a fast flowing game. I enjoy watching it, but. Yeah, it's just that, if they don't get a result against France, they go down to the next tier, so that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So they won't actually get an opportunity to play those higher sides all the time.
And France are very good too.
Yeah. All right, well, let's turn our attention back to the quarterfinal, Tasman versus Canterbury. We've talked a little bit about the Canterbury side and what you're expected. So as far as team announcement goes, when does that happen? Do you know?
Publicly?
Yeah.
You'd know the team. You'd know the Mako team, wouldn't you, Louis?
Yeah.
Publicly, I think that the Friday for the Sunday
game.
For the Sunday games, Thursday for the Saturday games.
So no inside scoops, Louis?
Nah, I can't give too much away.
Look, I think he can, because this won't go to air until what? Friday
Friday
night. Questions are, Jimmy Tavatavanawa, it's a massive loss. And interestingly, he was voted Mako Man and Mako Player of the Year in the Team Awards yesterday. So, his loss is major. So is Levi Amur back in the fold?
So when is this podcast coming out?
Friday, Saturday morning.
It'll be Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
I think after being on daddy duties, he should be back on board. But yeah,
I think that's really, really important because, we've got David Havili, Will Butler, Rookie of the Year in the Mako Team Awards. Admirable, capable player. But
Yeah.
just have that power and pace of Levi Amur, I think will be a point of difference that it will be welcomed by the fans.
You mentioned David Avilli, and is Ethan Blackadder, they're both available for that Sunday game?
yeah, I think both of them are available. So it'll also be interesting, I think, on the other side to see who Canterbury has available from the All Blacks as well. So
And Finlay Christie so he doesn't get on a plane yet.
No, everyone's available this weekend.
Right.
There are
So they've got
14
full squad.
Yeah, 14 released All Blacks, including our three. So everyone's on deck. And then, as I understand it, in the semi-finals, the All Blacks won't be available, but the All Blacks 15 players may be. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure to be honest with you. So yeah,
No, Hotham is hanging around the squad as well at the moment.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, geez, that's interesting, isn't it?
So you're a halfback, Louie.
yeah, I am indeed, Les. Yeah,
Yeah, starting halfback in some games, a couple of games at starting, and even got to captain the Mako. Congratulations against Otago.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just,
Pretty awesome, and a couple of Mako Man Awards in the week. So, how does Louie Chapman react to two players like Finlay and Noah being around?
yeah. Look, on an individual point of view, it's I'll be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit frustrating, especially when you think that they probably should be pushing for higher honours. But I guess it's just one of those things you kind of have to get on with pretty quickly and get on side. And I think if you drop your lip, then you're not doing anyone any good. You're not doing yourself or the team any good. So it's just one of those things. I've just got to prepare as best I can. If there's an injury or if they're unavailable for whatever reason, then I'm the next man up. So I've just got to be ready to go.
So as the team's warming up, I noticed against Taranaki that you, in fact, were in your playing gear just in case there is an injury.
Yeah, so obviously halfback's pretty hard spot just to cover. So usually there'll be a few boys that'll go and warm up just in case some select positions go down, and they're just being ready at the ready.
Yeah, and you've got a pretty significant role in this team in that you're part of the leadership group, and so therefore you also got the honour of being able to run the water out and get the messages to the players as well.
Yeah, becoming a pretty qualified water boy at the moment. So hopefully it doesn't stick around for too long.
Yeah. But I remember, when there's been competition in the All Black squad with Aaron Smith and TJ and Finlay and those kind of things, and whoever gets the nod, because at times Aaron Smith, had to sit on the bench. He wasn't a starter, and he talked about the fact that, okay, you don't get the nod this week, but then your job becomes to prepare that player for the game. So, great depth and halfback with the Mako squad. So is that a role with you to help those guys and try and get them going for the match?
Yeah, absolutely. So, after training, seeing if there's anything that they need in terms of skill stuff to prepare them, and through the week, we've got another 15 on the other side that are preparing as Canterbury to try and show the right pictures for what they're going to see on the weekend and prepare them as best as possible. So I guess that's part of my job.
So part of that also then, it must be that, playing with players like Finlay Christie and being involved in that build up to the match, does that add to your game? Do you learn more from players like that or being around players like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially in the way they prepare throughout the week, the way they lead the team. Halfback's a pretty vital position in terms of leadership and when to talk and what you say. So just picking up little things like that, I think is really cool.
You're with the Mako Rugby Roundup, and first of all, tell us about Christchurch. So you're originally from Christchurch and grew up there. So tell us about what area you grew up and what school you went to and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sweet. I hope the listeners don't hold that against me, but yeah, I grew up in Christchurch.
You're a Mako man.
yeah, that's right. I'm adopted now. Grew up in Papanui and went to Christchurch Boys High School. My old man went there, so sort of got in through that way. Wasn't in the area, and played rugby and cricket there. I absolutely loved my time at Christchurch Boys. had guys like Alex Neckable and Will Jordan. I think Alex was my peer support leader or something. He was a prefect and looked after our class. So naturally, I always looked up to him when I was a young year 9, and he was there in the first 15. And when I was down in Christchurch, I kind of naturally always followed Tasman because of guys like Will and Alex, who I looked up to. And so to be able to link kind of back up with them and play with them sort of in a full circle kind of thing was pretty cool.
So you would have had some clashes with Nelson College, would you?
Yeah. Had a few clashes with Nelson College, and then it's something I'm pretty proud to say is we never lost to them. So
is that right? Wow.
I think we played them 4 or 5 times, and it was pretty good feat considering the prowess they hold at First 15 Rugby.
So who were some of the college players you were up against in those current Mako players in the college side?
So in my first year was Willie Hiverley. His last year, then the next year, Lester Whanganuku was running a absolute rampage around. So took about 3 guys to get him down, and then but later on, my last year, I think Anton was maybe captain as a year 12. So I got to lock horns with him. Some pretty good guys that I came up against.
So in Christchurch, main rivals for Christchurch boys, is it Christ College or is it St Bede's or?
Yeah, Christ College.
Christ College.
St Bede's as well, but we always have an annual college match, we call it, which gets a pretty good raucous crowd, and it's one of those games that you want to be a part of when you're playing first 15 rugby.
Yeah. Has it always been rugby for you growing up, or were there other sports that also took your interest?
I was pretty keen on my cricket. I absolutely loved my cricket throughout the summer, and it probably showed because I wasn't in the gym during the summer and pretty underdone when it got to rugby season, but I was in the nets instead, and played in the first 11 there at Christchurch Boys as well, and we actually won, I think, 2 national titles when I was playing in there, which was pretty cool. And I love it, and I still miss it a wee bit of it. Follow along with the Black Caps. One of my good mates plays for Canterbury, so catch up with him. What
were you, batter, bowler?
I like to call myself an all-rounder, but
okay.
Didn't really bowl that well, but just sort of middle order bat.
Good.
Yeah,
it's a great game, no doubt about that. Our friend Ryan Coxon tells us you're also handy with a golf.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're the ones they look over their shoulder at, because apparently if they're ahead on the ladder, you're not too far behind.
Yeah, Coxie goes pretty well, but I'm always sort of sitting just behind him. But I love my golf, get out whenever I can.
And playing off, what, 4 or 5, you said?
Yeah, about a 4 or 5.
That's a handy golfer, Chris.
Geez, they all got pretty good scores, aren't they?
Remarkable. David Harvilli and Will Jordan are accomplished golfers as well, quite a few of them.
Yeah, and they had a big ball too. You're always buddy behind them, and haven't hit a 6 iron and they're hitting a pitching wedge, so it doesn't seem fair sometimes.
So at some point you made a decision on rugby. Was it quite obvious that was the road you were going down, or did you have to make a decision at some point? And then if it wasn't rugby, what might it have been for you? And not necessarily a sport, but
good question. So when I was year 13, I made the New Zealand secondary schools rugby team, and that kind of just opened up some pathways for out of school. I played Canterbury under-19s cricket, but there wasn't necessarily, I guess, any pathways outside in terms of like a training regime, or I don't know, just rugby for whatever reason kind of took my grasp there, and from there I actually went to uni, so I'm still kind of chipping away at it, but studying a psychology degree, sort of undergraduate, but hopefully finish that off next year. But maybe if I wasn't doing rugby, I'd have finished that, and who knows, in that line.
That's our second psychology degree guest. Was it who was our man that went to Hawke's Bay? Was it Hugh?
Oh, Hugh Renton.
Renton. He was studying. Yeah, very interesting.
Tell us a bit about mum and dad, and they were very encouraging, whatever you did.
They've been awesome for me. Definitely rocks in my journey. Like I think when I played in the first 15, that they barely missed a game. Dad had a wee sports shop, and he'd make sure someone was working on the Saturday at 2:00 so he could come watch, or they'd drive up to Blenheim, and they get to pretty much every other Mako game as well. They've been awesome supporters of mine, and they're Tasman supporters now, and they're always wearing their Mako apparel, and it's pretty cool.
Excellent.
So what happens for you in the off season? Do you stick around the Nelson Regional? Is it down to Christchurch or?
Yeah, so last year I headed back down to Christchurch to catch up with mum and dad, stay with them, and then I went into sort of the Crusaders season from there in November, so into their pre-season.
Yeah. So you tend to head down south, get ready for the super season.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Catch up with mum and dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Spend some time down there.
Good food. Nothing like it.
Yeah, home cooking's pretty good.
That's right.
You've now played 40 games for the Mako, which is significant. 10 more, and there's a blazer at the end of the journey. So how well do you recall your debut in 2020 against Northland?
Oh yeah, no, pretty clearly, to be honest. I remember I was actually out playing golf on the Wednesday, and I got a call from Greg Cornelius saying Finlay was going to have to get an appendix taken out. So I was going to be in that weekend, and I remember running on. I think the back line was Mitch Hunt. The All Blacks were available for that week, so there was Severeese, Lester, Will Jordan was playing, Davey was at 12.
Wow.
And so I run on, and I remember Gray saying to me, mate, when you get out there, it's like you're driving a Ferrari. You got the keys to a Ferrari with that back line, so just make sure you feed it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what you did?
Get the ball to them. So, it was pretty cool.
Awesome. And then you're obviously involved, and in 2020 the Mako ended up playing the final in Auckland, famous victory. Did you go on the trip?
I actually got injured in round 7 versus Southland, so I did PCL on my knee, so I was back at home and celebrating accordingly.
Oh, were you with us at the New Street Steakhouse by any chance?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't remember this.
Well, I'm surprised that I don't. We were pretty happy by the end of that game.
Yeah. No, she was a pretty awesome performance, and one worth celebrating.
Anyway, well done. That was your debut year. But you mentioned Finlay Chrissy. I don't recall knowing that he had to get his appendix out mid-season. But a good mentor for you.
Yeah, absolutely. As I sort of touched on earlier around the training standards and the work that you can put in off the field, the amount of clips that you see him going through, and just actually how to be a good bugger as well off the field. So. Definitely a good mentor and now a good mate too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just interesting when we had a chat to him in high school. He was into gymnastics and that training regime, and he said it just followed through to his rugby, and whatever he had to do in gymnastics, he had to train a lot to try and gain perfection. He just was able at a young age to learn to be able to do that to better his game in rugby, and he just carried on. So. Yeah, so it was just the discipline, because I don't think he ever rated himself of going anywhere with rugby at all, and he was always quite surprised when he got selected.
Every selection he ever had, a very unassuming young man.
That's right, but it was just the routine he got into with his gym training. That was a discipline that improved his game over time, and the natural abilities came out. So I suppose watching him training rubs off on people. Yeah. So we're talking about Finlay becoming All Black in 2021. So you had an outstanding NBC, and you recall the season and the final against Waikato.
Oh yeah, still breaks me a wee bit that final. We had a pretty, I guess, turbulent sort of a year with ups and downs. Then we lost a Ranfurly Shield challenge to Hawke's Bay, and then sort of. Started trending quite well, and then we lost a game we probably shouldn't have to Canterbury in Christchurch, and then snuck ourselves into the top 4 and beat Hawke's Bay away, which was a pretty massive feat, really. And then just got tipped up in that final, which, still haunts me a wee bit.
That was a remarkable turnaround, because in the challenge against Hawke's Bay, they were very dominant. And got a big lead, and we clawed our way back in, but just that fast start was too good on the day. But then the tables were turned in the semi-final quite significantly. What happened? What drove the change, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I just sort of think a little bit of a nothing to lose mindset. But guys just backing themselves. I think in that Ranfurly Shield challenge, potentially we went into our shell a little bit. in that semi-final, the boys just unleashed some awesome weapons out there with guys like Leicester and the boys just fired. It was one of those days that everything sort of clicked.
Yeah. Were you on the park at the end of the game?
Yeah, I was. I managed to kick the ball out, so that was pretty cool. I think Levi got the turnover and he was about to throw it out, which would have been a penalty. And I've got in the way, so he's thrown it to me and I've booted it out. So that was probably pretty lucky.
All right. So now you're off to another final because it's the third final in 3 years. How was that game against Waikato? Did you feel like you were in it? Because I remember one of the Sullivans scoring a couple of tries off drop balls. But other than that, the Mako looked pretty superior.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was one of those games that we sort of felt like, how did we lose that a little bit? Definitely we were in it. Played pretty well, scored some good tries, but yeah, just a couple of loose passes or some bounce the rugby balls. And I think it was Balin Sullivan scored 2 sort of against the run of play tries, which when you give away 14 points in a final and a 23-20 scoreline, it's not ideal.
2022, 2023, a bit more difficult for the squad because you had reached some heights, but in a way it was a bit of a rebuilding phase because the squad did have quite a few injuries. You got a lot of game time, but how did the squad handle that? Do you think the new guys coming through and the squad as a whole, which is pretty much the makeup of the season squad in a way, the core of it. So do you think that brought you guys close together?
Yeah, I think so. Like naturally, with sort of trials and tribulations, they can either push you apart or bring you closer together. And I think we've got a pretty awesome culture in this team. So we got pretty tight, but I know that definitely boys are pretty frustrated with the performances that were coming out in the park and definitely not feeling that we were reaching our potential. So I think this year, pretty big credit to Quinny as captain to be able to get the boys together and say, right, this is a potential that we've got, and giving a bit of a vision to to performing better. And I think everyone's kind of bought into that, and I think the performances of sort of that rounds 1 to 9 reflect that. So hopefully we can just keep that ball rolling in the finals.
Well, one of the advantages of getting plenty of field time is the fact that you got picked up for the Crusaders in a debut against the Hurricanes. So can you tell us about that? How did that come about? And tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit lucky in terms of injuries, but that's sort of the nature of the game, right? Got down there and I was named to be on the bench against the Hurricanes in the last round. So it was a relatively important game, and Mitch Drummond was supposed to be starting and he went down in the warm-up. So he did something to his calf, and anyway got a nudge on the shoulder that said, righto mate, you're starting now. And I was going so that sort of gave me a bit of a jolt. But to be honest, I think that was the best thing, you didn't have to sit on the bench and sort of, I guess, worry or none of that all that sort of anxiety kind of just went out the window, and you just straight out there and into it. He just into playing, and that was a pretty awesome game to be a part of. Unfortunately, we just lost by 1 point, but I felt like I handled myself pretty well out there, and it was a pretty awesome, I guess, leap into understanding that I can compete at that level and perform well.
Because did you find a big leap in the pace, or did you find that you could slip in there and do the job at that level? Was it a big leap for you? Or?
It's actually funny because I some of that ball that I was getting from that forward pack was some of the best ball I've ever got in my life as a halfback. And Richie Moanga outside me with some pretty unreal comms. So in some aspects, my job was quite easy. If that makes sense. Definitely not easier, but so there's definitely some aspects of that made it easy for me. But definitely I think gave me a lot of confidence that that level wasn't a massive step away. Yeah,
and it's funny you should say that, because I've talked to other people. I've experienced this myself when I've had to leap up to a higher level when I started playing first division football. And of course, no one will agree with this, but I felt that I felt better playing at that level because the players that I had around me were just so good. They were in the right spots. They were calling for the ball. you didn't have to sort of cover anyone, or if I slipped up, I was being covered, whereas the lower grades, the skill level wasn't quite as high. So it's interesting you say that, because a few players have talked about that, whereas other players just talk about, especially I suppose the forward pack, just the increase in pace. The referees talk about that, don't they?
Yeah,
The lungs burn when you go up to that next level.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You were in fact given your second set of keys to a Ferrari, weren't you?
That's
right.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about the social side of footy, because you're a gregarious young man. You're a social character. So you played a game for the Crusaders against the Hurricanes with Richie Moana, and so you go into the sheds. Is that a really fun part of playing rugby?
Yeah, I think the sheds and the social aspect is certainly a massive part of why I play, and certainly what makes it so much fun. And I think some of those cultures, like the Crusaders, having been a part of that was really awesome. And I think what we have here at Tasman's certainly so special. And it's definitely bloody awesome to be going there, and you sort of go to battle and put everything out there on the field, and then to be able to share a beer with your mates afterwards is pretty cool.
Yeah. So everyone talks about the excellence of the culture at the Tasman Mako level. So and you're part of the leadership group, and you've been a captain of the side this year already. So who are the guys that you like being around the most?
Oh, I don't know. We've got a pretty good flat. So I live with Quinn and Finlay and Davey when he pops back in there. There's always a bit of banter floating around, and it's always good fun. To be honest, it's hard to single out anyone really in the team. Everyone gets on really well, and we often have good laughs, a few beers. It's good fun.
Fantastic. All right, Louie. Well, good luck this Sunday, mate. At the squad feeling pretty good.
Yeah. The squad's definitely confident. We feel formed pretty well this year, and it's just one of those things, knowing that we can do it, and then going out there and putting a performance on the park.
Any changes in the forward pack?
Great question. Forward pack, not as much my domain. No, I think
Sione?
Actually, I think Sione might be out. Johnny Lee coming into 7, who's a young gun but performed bloody well, actually.
Isn't he a good player? Yeah. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's, the minutes he's getting, he's making the most of, and he's a tough little rooster.
Yeah.
So,
Good man too.
Good fella.
Yeah.
Everyone's said that so far. That's awesome. And you've made sure you've got him Christchurch boy, but he's now a Mako man for life, isn't he?
I reckon so. He's Christ College, but we won't hold that against him. Hopefully, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very good. All right, so what is it, 2:05?
Sunday.
Lansdowne Park, and presume tickets are still available.
Yes.
I thought some emails during the week come out. So, and the weather forecast in Nelson's looking pretty good. So I don't know about Blenheim, but
I think it'll be a fine day.
Nice.
Just on the tickets, you can get them at the gate, but if you want to pre-buy, mako.flickit.co.nz.
Yeah. I mean, if you just go to the Mako site, you'll find your way, won't you?
Yeah,
and that these days, just getting the QR code on your phone, and that's the way to go. It's so easy, isn't it?
But I do think that they'll come out and support this team very, very well. It's I like the way Blenheim get in behind you, and because of the proximity of the stands to the sidelines, it's quite rowdy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The players must love it.
Yeah, we loved it, and we felt it against Wellington. So I think that definitely helped get the boys across the line in some big moments, and they're definitely a rowdy sort of a crowd, which is awesome. We love playing there, so hopefully they come out in full force.
Yeah, and it's different rugby now, isn't it? Because that's it, isn't it?
Yes.
No one
knockout footy.
Go home. So it's all on the line, and I'm sure Canterbury were coming up because I think the last couple of performances they've been doing all right. So yeah, it'd be a big game, be a big challenge. But you've had those challenges before, and you've come out on top. So great season so far. So we wish you all the best of luck. Thank you, Louie, for coming in.
No worries.
Thank you, Les.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're getting on the bus.
No, I'll drive over and
do
the ground announcing, and
it's the way he gets in the park, because he takes the microphone with him. and he just strolls on in.
Yeah, they'd be fine.
And then just does a few woohoos, which, not only do we hear all over town, we hear over the region now and on the television now. It's becoming quite famous. Yes, we might have to pay to be in your presence soon.
I don't think so.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, great to
All
have
right.
you, Louie.
That's it for another edition. My thanks to Louie Chapman. There's Edwards and, of course, the Turf Hotel. You can catch this and other podcasts on talknelson.co.nz, on Spotify. Just look for MBS Talk Nelson, and on our social media channels, Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you again next week.
The Mako Rugby Roundup. What's on, where, and when. It's the Talk of Nelson. NBS Talk Nelson.